I guess I wish we had more conviction around saying that, no, we're going to stick to like our model and see that through. But just because you feel like, okay, there are people that have maybe done this at scale or helped other companies, you're a little more flexible in terms of taking that advice. But I just feel like that's where you also need to stand your ground and say that, well, it's a good idea, but maybe we're not necessarily going to try it out right now.
Welcome to the Scaling Executive Podcast. I'm Glen Gow, the Scaling Executive Coach. I coach ambitious executives into the CEO seat and CEOs into successful exits. With 25 years as a CEO and 5 years in venture capital, I guide executives to scale their companies by scaling themselves first. On this podcast, I sit down with top-performing executives to uncover the hidden patterns and frameworks behind their success, so you can avoid common pitfalls and accelerate your personal growth and your company's growth. Now, on to the show. Sriram Subramanian is a veteran product leader and entrepreneur who has spent 2 decades at the intersection of payments, identity, and global commerce. As the CEO of LinkToAny, an AI-native commerce integration and automated onboarding platform, he has built a system that simplifies how businesses connect their digital tools. Under his leadership, the company has scaled to serve more than 50,000 businesses globally, ranging from retail and restaurants to service-oriented enterprises. His team's work is now trusted as a core infrastructure layer by major industry players like Shopify, PayPal, GoDaddy, and Lightspeed, proving that AI-driven automation is the new standard for mid-market commerce platforms. Earlier in his career, he was a pivotal figure at PayPal, where he led the branded checkout and global operations product lines, driving over $500 million in sales lift through innovations like the inline turbo checkout. This conversation is essential for any leader looking to understand how to move from a 0 to 1 product phase into a global operation that supports tens of thousands of customers. Sriram, it's great to have you here.
Likewise, I'm very excited for this conversation, and hopefully whatever I share can be of use to your audience.
Thank you. I'm sure it will. Now, you moved from high-end R&D at HP to scaling your own ventures and leading global product lines at PayPal. Looking back, what was the most difficult mindset shift you had to make when transitioning from a technical architect to a CEO responsible for sales and partnerships and everything else?
Yeah, I think even before PayPal, I was a developer. So my journey was developer to product manager to founder, and in each of those steps, you're having to let go of something, whether it's writing code. When I moved into product, and then when I'm the next step of product to founder, then you're saying that, well, while you would still be responsible for product, but you have to be making sure that go to market is happening in the right way, that we're raising money and we're doing these other things, and then building out the team and functions in a way that it scales properly. Right. So I think it's a lot of people have done it well, but at the same time, you can also easily stumble upon these things where you're not willing to let go of your what is your forte or you love to do.
Yes.
And so for me, it was just recognizing that I needed to have trust my team and hire new people whenever the need arose, and that I need to serve across all of these functions to be effective for the company.
Let's talk about that a little bit, because part of it is letting go of what we love or what we happen to be excellent at. The other part means, well, I have to take on responsibility for things that I don't enjoy doing or I might not be very good at. So tell us a little bit about how you thought about that problem and and put yourself in a position to take on new challenges.
Yeah, I think sales and marketing is like a good example broadly because I never learned it or had to do it at my jobs and all the way through PayPal. And when I started this process, as with a lot of startups, it has to be founder-led sales. You're not going to go
Right.
hire a CRO or someone,
Yeah.
right? At the
Yeah.
beginning.
Yeah.
So going into that, I had to discover what is our selling process? Am I effective at it? And how do we? So I learned that, okay, I was speaking to a partnerships person at a point of sale company who would understand the product. And fortunately for us, it is a technical sales process. So in that way, I was able to apply what I was good at as a technical product manager and as an engineer into the selling process. And that resonated because then you would go from a partnerships person sometimes to a CTO or a more technical profile. And then that transition would be smooth because I would be able to speak those different languages that are needed for the selling process. And then we also started selling to merchants directly to end user businesses. And I soon realized that that's not a good fit or part of our DNA because that's very different selling motion and support motion. So we made a conscious decision that we would only sell to the platforms and make them our channels. If that worked, we have a business. If it doesn't, like we're not going to bend over backwards to create a business that is doing field sales and going direct to merchants, right? So it was almost like this is hypothesis A, let's see if it pans out and then we roll with it. Otherwise we don't have something here.
So how did you make that decision to go through the platforms as opposed to direct?
Yeah, it organically started in that way because we were, initially my co-founder and I, we were talking to this point of sale company where he was working at the time. He was, this was this New Zealand based company called Vend, which eventually got acquired with one of our current customers, Lightspeed, acquired that company. Um, so we were talking to their platform team and they were telling us about how it's a pain for them to support these e-commerce and other platforms that come to them asking for integrations. They struggle a bit. These guys don't have the bandwidth. And they asked us, like, can you be the middleman, right? Like the integrator to solve this for us. So in a way, that first set of inbounds we fortunately got from the ecosystem. And then it was up to us to say, how do we scale this or productize, do it in a way that works for much broader parts of the ecosystem.
Got
But
it.
but the fact that we didn't build out a sales team and it sort of forced us to figure out this approach to go to market. Like even today, we don't have a sales org in the company.
Really?
Um,
Wow.
yeah. So it is. I put in some time. Our head of product. We have a fractional marketing person. So we all are putting in time and helping move deals along. And we have a good process and workflow around like how we track deals and go through this workflow. But we we have still continued on this model and we feel like with all of the AI tooling that we have on hand, we can even go further without a head of sales necessarily like as a dedicated function.
Wow. Wow. Well, that's impressive. That's very impressive. What is it about the I'll call it the underdog retail environment that keeps you professionally energized? I mean, I know you were a self-employed builder launching open source commerce tools earlier in your career. So what is it about this space that excites you?
Yeah, it's that one is that it's evergreen. Sure, you may have phases like COVID that take things down, but there's always a new set of challenges that keep coming up in this space. They are low margin and challenging businesses. Like if you look at retail and restaurants, they're not easy businesses to run. But overall, the market is pretty substantial. So you could be operating, for example, we were in just doing SMB retail and restaurants for a little bit. And then the last 3 to 4 quarters, we have moved up market to now some of our deployments are straight away going into 400, 500 locations, right, at the national level.
Yeah.
And so you're thrown into a new environment, new set of systems, and it just keeps the team on edge. But we're able to effectively go into these new categories, and it's almost like the company has to evolve in so many ways to serve this new, bigger segment. and that keeps it very interesting and challenging for us, right? The deployment, security models, everything changes, but that gives us a natural way to expand the business without having to like leave the boundaries of these segments. But the it's largely also what we knew, right? As my, like I said, my CTO was coming from a retail point of sale. I was coming from like this payments and fintech kind of world with a lot of retail and some degree of hospitality and restaurant interaction. So it's not that we just felt like this is a little bit of our comfort zone. If and if and when this we capture this market and others need help, we will obviously expand further. But these are such fairly established and big markets that we haven't had the need to really venture out too much. There's still so much to be done.
Yes, yes. Let's talk a little bit about you and your journey as a CEO. So you have a very technical background and have expertise in that area, and yet, as we talked about earlier, being a CEO, you have to give some of that up. Talk to us about some of the challenges either you went through or you see other CEOs going through, and expanding their capabilities in order to focus on growing a company as opposed to doing what they're best at.
Yes, I would say that I think you would hesitate in areas where you feel like you don't have the expertise, that somebody else can tell you what to do, right? So we've had situations where advisors or investors would be like, hey, you need to have this kind of a sales team, otherwise you're not going to be successful. And we did hire and then had to let go of a couple of people, where we said, no, actually, you know what? Somebody just coming in, an SDR coming in with a general selling background, if they cannot ramp up, or if they haven't done deeply technical sales, is just not going to work. And that's something where I guess I wish we had more conviction around, saying that, no, we're going to stick to like our model and see that through. But just because you feel like, okay, there are people that have maybe done this at scale or helped other companies, you're a little more flexible in terms of taking that advice. But I just feel like that's where you also need to stand your ground, and say that, well, it's a good idea, but maybe we're not necessarily going to try it out right now,
Yeah.
because
Yes.
then
Yes. Yes.
it's a, it is a long and difficult process then to say that you tried building something and you have to let go of people and all of that, right? So that's, and then the other piece is just learning about what's your style of leadership, what works for the team. So, basic things like, for our culture or leadership style wise, I've tried to adopt our full transparency in terms of our numbers, right? So even in our all hands, I would actually pull out our actuals and forecasts and try to tell the team like, okay, look, we had this profitability goal that we missed, but here's the measures we took. So you can see now in the next month or two, like these are how that's changing down. And so like few days ago in our last all hands, one of our engineers asked me like, hey, I see this line of debt which has suddenly gone up. Can you tell me why? Right. And so I explained it, and the people, some people may care, some others may not. But it's this idea that I think having, I feel like that, and the team knowing that we have their back, we're not just going to let people go just because, all right, like have AI did this, and so we need to trim by X, like that. Those are not things we will take lightly or do randomly. Like we will do our best to be transparent and retain and grow this team. So those are things that have served us well in terms of, so we have very high retention for multiple years as a result of some of these basic tenets that we have followed. But just learning about like, how do I want to lead, and saying that, okay, if scheduled weekly one-on-ones just don't work for me, and they're not necessary on the I've checked with the team. A lot of people are like, that's fine. I don't need it either. So just because that's sort of a norm, you don't have to really take it. And being comfortable, again, it goes back to that of like build your own playbook or set of
Yes.
lists. And you don't really have to go read two books to say how was these great companies built and just try to replicate that.
That's right. That's right. I often tell CEOs, look, I'm going to share with you some best practices, but you have to develop your own. So, what is the Sriram way of doing things and that works for you? And the more you can continue to prove it through successes in the way you run the organization, the more we can adopt this new potential best practice that you've created. So, on the last topic, I want to talk about AI. Now, you are an AI native company. And so I don't want to talk about developers in the world of AI because there's been enough information about that. I am interested, though, in your philosophy around the rest of the organization and how you think about what are we going to be doing here as it relates to AI. And that's part one, sort of an internal focus. And the second is an external focus on how, how, how is AI going to be radically changing what we offer to our customers?
Right. I'm aligned in that viewpoint of like the developer piece will happen because there's just so much focus on it anyway in the ecosystem. And so for the rest of the team, the general approach we have taken is to say, make it part of your daily problem solving, right? Like your first, eh, don't worry about like catching up on news and new models and just worrying about like the pace of change, but say like, okay, today I need to create this brief, right? And you're like analyzing two contracts and you need to create a complex comparison. You need to be able to say that I should not be spending 2 hours on this. That and to the extent that you should know that if I feed this to Claude and whether do I need to use Opus or Sonnet would be good enough for this kind of job, and then just have it do it and save that time, right? And that needs to be top of mind for everybody in keeping up with. So we have like our AI learnings channel where every person from their respective function is constantly sharing, okay, here's what I use to do this, and it's kind of,
Yeah, I like that.
yeah. So that's a very active channel that we have. And then we're looking at every person's thinking about, oh, token usage is like gone through the roof. What do we do? So we brainstorm. So now, for example, on the infrastructure side, we collectively said, like, let's figure out all of these alternate models so that we are not really reliant as much on OpenAI and Anthropic. And so now we're trying to do these tie-ups with like DigitalOcean, Databricks, and some of these companies that help you with your own hosted and open source models, right?
Right.
So that's going to help everybody. It's not just for developers, but we've in some sense, like I did declare a code red to say that, look, this is non-negotiable. You've got to be using it every day, regardless of function, right? But you have the leeway to say what works for me. And but you have to be committed very seriously to that process.
Yes.
And so we'll support the tooling and access that you need for it. So now Cloud Desktop is like used quite heavily in the organization. And I personally am huge fan of it, right, to run my daily tasks as well. So that's generally, I hope I've addressed like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Beautifully.
yeah. So but I can see now across like HR ops, all of the various places, but our developers are of course at the front line and doing the most.
Wonderful. Wonderful. And any comments about how it's going to transform the industry and what the role you're going to play?
Yeah, I think there's no doubt that in restaurants and retail, we've seen very rapid adoption across. Some of the big brands have done it. I think the challenge lies again for the small and mid market.
Yeah.
And that's where I feel like we are changing course in a way that we're trying to position ourselves as a platform agnostic long-term partner to the business to say, look, whenever you're thinking about your tech stack, you want to switch systems, you want to integrate new things, you're trying to figure out, oh, how do I use this 20 new AI apps that came out? Those are things that we, as a neutral partner, we want to be a thought leader and like really long-term partner for the business. I think that has some value because that's a gap today. Every platform is just in its own niche and serving a like a narrow utility for the merchant and user business. So I think we see ourselves um, as someone who truly looks out for the business and their long-term needs in that sense, right? And that includes, it's not limited to AI, but it obviously has a big portion of what small businesses are not able to figure out as compared to Sephora or a Jack in the Box who will have several people looking at experimenting with technology, right?
Course. All right. Well, Sriram, thank you so much for sharing some of your thoughts and insights with us.
Of
Um,
course.
and I love the AI learning channel idea and a lot of other things you spoke about, but we're out of time. So, how can people learn more about what you are doing?
Yeah, I'm available on LinkedIn. It's SSUB is my handle on LinkedIn, Sriram Subramanian. And then on the company website, of course, LinkToAny.com, all one word, is where you can learn more about the company. And there's a lot of YouTube videos, content, etc. And I do love to engage with folks on LinkedIn as well. So please do so, and I hope you enjoyed the conversation.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate you being here today.
Thank you, Glenn. Really enjoyed it.
That's a wrap for today's episode of the Scaling Executive Podcast. If you found this valuable, be sure to like, subscribe, and share with a fellow executive who could benefit. If you're listening on Apple or Spotify, please give us a quick rating as it really helps more people find the show. I'm Glen Gow, the Scaling Executive Coach. See you next time for more proven strategies to grow yourself and your business.